So you see the thumbnail with this gray couch, like from the previous videos. This means that I'll be talking about things that are not simply black or white, but also things that are pretty dark, namely the conflict in Ukraine. Now, worry not. Tomorrow we will definitely proceed again with Ukrainian car content, even if I would want to make another video on this topic, I will simply not be able to because I'll be traveling to Finland. So video has been already or uploaded and it's ready to be published for tomorrow on. But the reason why I'm making again a video on this topic is because there have been some personal developments. Also, the reason why this video is being published quite late. I want to comment on some topics of yesterday's video. And I've received, most importantly, that we're going to start with, lots of messages, lots of positive, supportive messages, for which, first of all, I would like to really thank many of you. I've also received lots of messages from people in Ukraine, people that are currently hiding in bomb shelters. And it was heartbreaking. I spent this morning also in tears, especially after reading one particular one that really stood out and hit home that I would like to share with you. It goes, Mikhail, hello, Mikhail, which is also like formal for Misha. My name is, gonna blur it out for privacy security reasons. I am from Kharkov. Together with my family, I'm hiding from the bombardments. Orcs, which is like a nickname for Russians at this point, are shooting to the center of the city. If you have any possibility, please help the refugees from Ukraine. Thank you. This is our main square of this is the main square of our city 10 minutes ago. Now, if you're following the news, you have seen the video, the footages, and there are also a lot more footages like that where Russian artillery is hitting residential homes. I would really like to emphasize on that because following yesterday's video, and we'll get to that in a bit, about the negative comments I have received, mostly from Russians, saying that it's either fake, or it must be an accident, or things are really worse. Civilians are being targeted here. To which I reply, fuck, be strong, hold on. To which that person replies, and I promise you, next season I'm going to rent car, not from another company at the Nürburgring, but from Apex. And then I burst out in tears. The reason for that, I'm not afraid to admit that I can get emotional. I'm not afraid to share my emotions. The reason for that is it really hit home. It really was familiar because, as you remember, last year, the very first lap of the year that I did, I bursted out in tears. The reason for that is that we had our very strict Corona lockdown here in Germany. And when I did the things that kept me sane was, soon this will be at some point over. I'll be able to do things that I love and enjoy. Now, a COVID lockdown in safety is absolutely not comparable to the situation that this person and hundreds of thousands and millions of people are going through. And it was like, such a cynicism in a way to compare, like, they are looking into death's eyes every single day, and yet they're thinking about the Nürburgring. Things that you and I, you guys from this channel love. So, the main reason of this video, the main topic of this video, why I'm making, is actually Robert called me earlier today. He's currently in the States, and he said that he wants to do something to help Ukrainian refugees. And the following things are going to be done. You may or may not know that his main business, aside from Apex, is actually real estate and providing housing. His main hotel, Circle Inn, will be made available to Ukrainian refugees by 5th of March, which should host about 50 Ukrainian wives and children of the men who were left behind in Ukraine to fight. And in the following weeks, it will be expanded with additional houses that will become available, up to 100 and hopefully maybe even 150 spots. We have set up a donation page. So we can not only, the housing is not a problem, we can provide these people with more, with food, with transportation, with communication means to home, and anything that could be necessary so they can live a normal life or have at least a spark of hope. It reminds me, of course, yes, of the flood situation of back then, of last year, and I guess this is what we just need to do now to help with another humanitarian crisis. I'll get to that notion in a bit. So I would like you to invite you to the donation page to help us support with this cause, and of course to invite you to support this whole shit show as much as you can in any way possible. You can share this video. You know what to do. I mean, majority of you know how you can support. That is the main thing. And regarding all the positive messages. Now let's talk also about some negative things that I've received. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there was actually, I want to grab one to elaborate on that and put it in a lot broader perspective. So there was one random guy who DM'd me saying that I'm basically only doing this, raising awareness, because I'm Russian. I should stop playing games because otherwise I would be cancelled out, and so this whole thing is fake. Now, I would love to insert a screenshot that the conversation went like on Instagram, but I blocked this guy because no one needs negativity in their life, and when I unblocked him a few minutes ago to go through the messages didn't pop up anymore, so you just have to believe my word. This is basically what happened. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is, of course, I try to defend my case, even though I should not spend time on haters, but saying like, hey, no, it's not the case, because even if we take away all the facts that I mentioned in the last few days in the videos, being afraid of cancelled out is not as bad as being afraid of having repercussions. As a Russian, probably they cannot do much to me, but you know what they did to Navalny and to other people. I might all of a sudden drink poison tea. I don't think I'm a big player, but they could, for example, maybe target my family that is still in Russia, my family members. Things like that happened before, and something that I'm a lot more afraid of than being cancelled out. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is if one random guy on the internet has some opinion about some other guy on YouTube that he has never met before, then you can understand that it is actually quite hard to... Where was I? Yes, if a random guy on the internet goes out of this way to message another random person from YouTube that he has not met before to express his opinion, and after presenting with all those counter arguments, he's still not willing to admit that he was wrong, then how will other people admit that they are wrong in a lot more severe cases? For example, in my case, I'm not afraid of admitting that maybe in yesterday's video I kind of over-exaggerated by calling what's currently happening in Ukraine a genocide, because many Russian soldiers, when they see Ukrainian people face to face, they don't kill them, except for targeted artillery strikes. So let's call it a humanitarian crisis, or humanitarian catastrophe, probably. And hopefully it will not evolve into genocide. I'm not afraid of admitting my mistakes. Another example, if we would want to talk about the Nürburgring, we quite often talk about drivers' mistakes, because when a driver has an accident and he makes a crash, it's in most of the cases never the driver. It's always something with the tires, something with the sun was blinding him, all the driver's excuses. And now let's circle back to yesterday's video, where I said that the best case scenario, in my opinion, to avoid bloodshed and nuclear warfare would be something that probably all the Western parties are trying to achieve by imposing these hard sanctions on the Russian people, Russian oligarchs and everything, would be a revolution, internal overthrow, internal fight. Now, the question is, will these sanctions lead to that? Will they be successful? Because first of all, people will have to admit that they were wrong. And we're not talking about something that happened over the last few months or years. We're talking about indoctrination and propaganda that has been happening over the last century. Because ever since from the beginning of communism, the West was bad, capitalism was bad, they're greedy, they're very bad. Then the Stalinism, the Cold War, then later also the 90s, and also the situation in Ukraine. This is not something that the Russian government has been like really preparing the Russian people for, to go against Ukraine into war, or like having them support this conflict. It has been happening for many, many years. The most prominent argument from the Russians that I get the most is, of course, like, oh, now you're standing up for them, but what about the things that were happening 8 years ago in Donbass? After so many things that the Russian government has lied to you also over the last weeks, that they're not preparing to invade Ukraine, that they're not targeting civilian targets, hundreds of things that they have lied to people to cover up their shit. Maybe, of course, there were some racial things. Maybe you have an uncle or a nephew that says like, well, some Ukrainian called me a bad Russian, and I heard, and especially I read it on the news, that in the village next door they're burying people alive. Hard to believe with all the things that was said also in the past, and there were lies. And I must again also admit myself that I was a victim of it. I was believing to it. I'm not gonna deny, I'm going to admit that 10 years ago, for example, people that know me up close from before my time on YouTube, they know that I was like always making posts on Facebook like how Russia is so much greater than the Netherlands, and etc., because that's what Russian media is trying to make their people believe. There was a very controversial story that I don't want to go into details, but when MH17 flight was taken down by probably Russian rocket, I was one of among the few people saying like, let's not draw any conclusions too fast, too soon. Maybe it's it's not Russia, maybe it's Ukraine, or who knows what. And on that flight, one of my teachers from university also passed away, and it was a big tragedy. But I was one of the people saying like, hey, because I actually saw lots of really propaganda, like the plane was filled with dead bodies and expired passports. Okay, we're winding down, we're moving away from the topic. What I'm saying is that it's going to take a lot to convince the people of something that they were told over the last century about their enemy, and they will have to admit that their government lied to them, that their family members, their grandparents were wrong about the fact, and most importantly, that they were wrong themselves. That's going to be a big task, and quite an impossible task. Now, furthermore, let's suppose that they realize that this is actually, maybe not necessarily they were wrong, but the government was wrong. So that could be like the best outcome, best case scenario. Then we have the second problem, is that they still will have to go and protest. And at this point, just silent protesters are getting beaten up, murdered. And maybe worse, well, what is worse than murder? Well, having your family going through the same because of something that you are trying to say. These things are horrible, so even if you admit that things are actually bad and you should do something against it, you will be afraid of doing something against it, afraid of other repercussions. And those things happen. Maybe I should insert a fragment of people getting beaten up over the last few days. Maybe not. Maybe just one. So these are very difficult things. Now, finally, also, people might be afraid of actually undergoing another change, because many revolutions and power changes led to anarchies and even bigger chaos, and people might think that actually such a powerful leader as Putin right now might be actually good for the country to have grasp on all the criminals as well, but mostly on the good people. And if that power goes away, then you're gonna have again disorganized, organized crime. So that could be it. So there are a lot of challenges, and we will see. Time will tell, but it's going to be definitely different. Now, final thing, since I'm really talking about all those things already, far off, not really off topic, There's one thing that I want to mention now. Suppose that everything will lead to this, to the ultimate change of power in Russia. The biggest thing that the Western parties need to absolutely do or not do, and I'm saying this as if like President of the European Union and United States are watching my video, but everyone needs to be aware that since at this point we're also witnessing some aspects of history repeating itself, we should definitely not repeat the history of the Treaty of Versailles of 1918, for example, where Germany was forced to take the blame for the World War I, which eventually led to the rise of Hitler, who could use that hate of the German people and lead them, well, unite them and create the Third Reich, etc., etc. So if the power change in Russia would happen, then definitely all the sanctions need to immediately be dropped, and everyone needs to stick to the current narrative is that the Putin and his regime are wrong and not the Russian people. Because otherwise things might get worse in the future, or they might repeat themselves. Right, that's been enough off topic. I should really go and edit and publish this video. Yeah, because it's been quite late. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thank you for support. Thank you for all the hateful comments as well. They motivate me to go even further with this, because like Winston Churchill said, I think, if you have never gotten any enemies in your life, this means you haven't achieved anything significant. So, or you didn't stand up for your opinion. Right, that's our bedtime story. And yeah. Just thinking of all the children right now in the bomb shelters on the ground having bedtime stories. In any case, thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow's video. Bye.